President Biden admits his son Hunter is in big trouble. Biden also calls on the world to stand up to Russia and the evil of Vladimir Putin. Trump announces that he will skip the next debate and speak in front of the striking auto workers union. Thank you so much for liking and sharing these videos on Twitter and Facebook. It really helps me out, so thank you so much. I'd also like to thank today's video sponsor, Ground News, and I'll tell you about their amazing platform and offer later in this video. NBC News has reported that President Joe Biden believes that Hunter Biden's legal problems could get worse in the coming months. Now, according to NBC, an insider stated, Joe Biden has even since lamented aloud that he might be dead before his son's cases could be resolved. Hunter Biden is currently still facing the possibility of tax evasion fraud charges and even more crime charges if Republicans are able to drum up more evidence. So President Biden is now publicly admitting he's terrified for his family. While Hunter Biden has been the only one to take the fall so far, the House Oversight Committee has just scheduled its first impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. According to committee spokesman, the hearings will focus on constitutional and legal questions surrounding the president's involvement in corruption and abuse of public office. Now, if they're able to prove there's bribery, then that could have him removed immediately under the Constitution and not even wait for impeachment. But before the hearings take place on September 28th, the committee is expected to subpoena Hunter Biden and the president's brother, James Biden, who were deeply involved in using the Biden name in order to extract money from foreign nations. As the 2024 election inches closer, so does the second Republican primary debate. According to Breitbart News, former President Donald Trump will once again skip the event. Instead of debating, Trump will give a speech in front of Detroit's auto workers who are currently on strike. Now, this is a genius move, according to many pundits, by Trump, because many of the auto workers are feeling abandoned by President Biden and the Democrat Party, and the inability to keep up with inflation as their wages have not gone up, and the threat of their jobs going away because of electric vehicles. Now, if this speech gets anywhere near the amount of Tucker Carlson interview views, this could make Trump even more popular among Democrats. However, the head of the UAW gave a speech today in which he denounced Donald Trump and said the very workers I represent get taken advantage of by billionaires like Donald Trump. The conservative journalist I recently interviewed, Jack Posobiec, has just been placed on the well-known Ukrainian kill list, which also previously included names like Tucker Carlson and Elon Musk and Scott Ritter. While the list is not from Ukraine's government, it documents how some Ukrainians feel about outspoken Americans. In response to being added to the list, Posobiec stated, after the collapse of his counter-offensive, Zelensky's biggest threat isn't me. It's his own intelligence services. Hope you don't get on the CIA's early retirement plan, Vlad. Drop the receipts on the Bidens and we'll find you a nice McMansion in Sarasota. So basically, he's not worried about it, but it is a threat and wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, President Joe Biden addressed the UN General Assembly, stressing unity in defending Ukraine against Russia's aggression. He warned that if Ukraine were divided, no nation could feel secure. Biden urged world leaders to maintain support for Ukraine, stating that Russia counts on nations growing tired of the conflict. He called Russia the obstacle to a resolution, demanding Ukraine's capitulation, territory, and even their children. The president aimed his forceful rhetoric at the global audience and Washington, D.C., where Republican isolationists threatened to end aid to Kyiv. Now, President Biden is a little bit up against a wall because over 60% of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, and independents, do not want any more U.S. taxpayer money going to Ukraine. Now, I have a lot more to share with you, but first, let me tell you about ground news. I want to let you in on a little secret when it comes to doing my research. I'm going to share with you one of my favorite news sources, and I'm honored to have them as today's video sponsor. Ground News is a website and app that empowers you to see through mainstream media's narratives to make sure that you're getting the full picture. They gather related articles from sources across the globe in one place so that you can see media companies that are covering each story and which ones are avoiding a specific story. They also show you the political bias of the news outlets themselves so that you can see which story is getting lopsided coverage. For example, this story about Donald Trump getting blasted by the head of the UAW, or United Auto Workers, is only being covered by center and left-leaning media. They likely want to embarrass the former president, while at the same time, you don't see groups like Fox News, News Nation, or Newsmax covering this because they want to shield Donald Trump from negative hit pieces. Now, what's interesting about this story is the headlines are very different depending on the news outlet reporting them. Here's another example. Dr. Fauci became incredibly rich during the pandemic. However, only right-leaning media cares to write about the story, while left-leaning media wants to keep him a selfless hero versus point out that he became a deca millionaire during the pandemic. So there's a lot of places to go and stay informed, but Ground News gives you the full picture on what's happening in the globe and also the biases behind that. You can also go on and see who is invested in these different companies that might be calling the shots on which stories make it to the front page and which ones don't. Now, I like the truth, whether it's coming from the left, the center, or the right. So go check out Ground News. Now, if you go to ground.news/Stephen, you can see through the bias reporting. You can also subscribe and get 30% off. So go check them out right now and make sure to use that link, which I'm going to leave down below. And again, thank you, Ground News, for sponsoring this update. Now, during President Biden's United Nations speech, he asked, "If we abandon core principles to appease an aggressor, can any member state feel confident they are protected?" He emphasized the U.S.'s commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty and freedom, highlighting the importance of cooperation against aggression, not just for Moscow, but also in the context of a potential Chinese aggression. Biden affirmed U.S. support for democracy and international collaboration on climate issues. Now, notably, leaders like China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Putin were absent from the gathering. Biden's address sought to demonstrate his administration's restored U.S. leadership on the world stage, while at the same time underscoring the value of diplomacy and international cooperation. The Walt Disney Company has announced that they are doubling down on their theme parks and cruise lines and plan to invest $60 billion in upgrades over the next 10 years, compared to the previous decade. CEO Bob Iger prioritized these park assets as one of the best moneymakers for Disney, and they want to keep people coming back. So the $60 billion has not exactly been shown or disclosed how they're going to spend that, but they could be expanding into another 1,000 acres of undeveloped land, which would basically be like 7 new Disneylands. So they're going to try to keep the excitement and adventure alive for those of you that are curious about Disney news. On the other side of the world, the Catholic Pope, Pope Francis, has once again stirred controversy by sitting down with Bill Clinton to discuss climate change. Some people are saying, why are you working with a former president? Why are you working with a Democrat? Why are you focused on climate change versus Christ? So it's stirring up a lot of uneasiness on why a pope is inserting himself in the climate change debate. Now, speaking of controversy, YouTube has announced that it has decided to demonetize Russell Brand. I'm sure some of you watch him because he covers topics similar to myself. He has been accused of sexual assault allegations, all of which he has denied. But because of that, until he's able to prove that he is innocent or it's proven that he is guilty, YouTube has said, we're not going to allow him to make money on our platform. Now, before you go, I want to remind you that you are amazing. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out this important video and this important video. Also, follow that link. Get 30% off Ground News. They really are an amazing company. Hey, thanks so much, and I will see you on the next video.